Hello everybody, it is me Pacific bringing to you another moving video. I think I needed to set the record straight on something about Ferguson, Missouri. Again, I have been concentrating on other subjects right now, but I think it's time for Pacific to inform his viewers of where he stands on the issue of protest, police abuse, and what the media gets carried away with, and how ethnicity plays a big part into egging on, encouraging unlawful and stupid behavior. That being said, you pretty much know where I'm going to go with this, one would assume. Excuse me as I clear my throat again. That's become a trademark of mine. I don't think I'm going to get rid of it. It's elicited all kinds of responses, so if I got rid of it, nobody'd know what to do anymore. Viewers, it is the express statement, it is the express position of Pacific Ocean Asia that I don't care what happens by law enforcement or people in authority that misrepresent the uniform, the badge, the city, or the country they're supposed to represent. If people act in an unlawful manner, busting up buildings, smashing up cars, setting things on fire, terrorizing people, creating rioting and mayhem, I will never get behind people doing that. We all know what happened when Rodney King was driving and acting like a complete maniac with no regard for anybody's safety on the LA freeway system. We know what happened when the police allowed their adrenaline, possibly their biased prejudice, to get the better of them and beat Rodney King. We know about the black community in LA, of where I'm from, went crazy, setting buildings on fire, spray painting people, destroying Korean shops, destroying neighborhoods of people that had nothing to do with police abuse. Pacific is an American, and I've had to sit with Chinese people in Hong Kong who said, when we look at your country and watch your news, we don't like black people. We see what they do, and they give themselves a very bad name by their behavior. And here in Hong Kong, when we see them show up, the first thought that comes to our mind is the behavior we see them act out when justice goes bad in the streets of America. It is Pacific's explicit position that I am not racist. But there are generalizations that can be made about races, ethnicities, economic groupings of people, females, males, whites, Hispanic, Asians, blacks. It goes on all the time. There is a difference between promoting hate and speaking truth. In America, that line is getting blurred with political correctness. In some circles, you mention the black word or the Mexican word, and you're in trouble. In other circles, it's okay for the same media that promotes political correctness to blast, mock, make fun of, and malign Christians and conservatives. How come political correctness doesn't apply there? Why does affirmative action apply heavy-handed on the white people, but when an ethnicity takes over a neighborhood, a city, and a county, that you'd be hard-pressed to see any of them hiring any of me? That's a valid question that demands an answer. And the answers I've gotten? Well, the whites are imperialists, they've been in power. Wait a minute. Affirmative action should apply to everybody. Could Pacific Ocean Asia go into the Deep South? down in Louisiana and get hired in an all-black community? Probably not. When people of ethnicity, when white people in Seattle, when they had the global summit and white people tore up downtown Seattle, bricks through windows, acting like fools, I don't like it no matter what color you are, what ethnicity you are, and what culture you are. Yes, I know I have a big piece of hair sticking out. I got bedhead. I have yet to shower. I'm off for the next few days, so I'm being as lazy as I can be to bring to you another quality production to pollute the internet. So what are my thoughts on Ferguson, Missouri? I know nothing about the black individual that was shot. I know nothing about anything of what happened there, so I have to withhold judgment. But it has been a standard of operation. It seems that in my lifetime, that when something involving an ethnicity comes down, it suddenly appears that it becomes an excuse for an ethnicity to go on a rampage and start taking it out on people and property that have nothing to do with the initial rage. I don't know why they do that. The term ghetto has been applied many, many times, and that, no matter who does it, is ghetto behavior. When the Los Angeles Fire Department, in the 90s riots involving Rodney King, could you sit down and discuss with the ethnicity that was rioting and tearing everything apart and walking off with televisions and appliances and electronics at stores they busted into, what that had to do with the police's mistreatment of Rodney? Absolutely nothing. White people have been accused of being racist. Oh, and they have been. What is that? What is that? Why is it okay in their minds to say we can terrorize Korean shop owners, set buildings on fire, and when the fire department's everybody's friend. When you dial 911, it's their truck that shows up to make sure you're okay. But no, the ethnicity at hand. We're shooting at the fire trucks and the firemen. They couldn't even put out the fires. When the military had to be called in to quash it. What an embarrassment to the greatest country in the land. So much for diversity working. Can't we all just get along? No. Because if somebody perceives an injustice, it's a rallying cry for ghetto behavior. Here in Denver, when an ethnicity gets pulled over for speeding, I've heard it out of my own ears. Oh, it was a white guy. He pulled me over because he's racist. Were you speeding? Yes. How fast? 40 over. 40? That's racist? He gave you a ticket for breaking the law. But it's not just them. I've listened to white guys. You know, the rednecks coming to work. They drink on Friday night. They come in on Monday. Effing cop. They got nothing better to do than get a quota. He gave me an effing ticket. How fast are you going? 20 over, man. I do it all the time. Why'd he pick on me? Wah, he picked on you. You happened to go by that day when he had his radar gun up, sonny boy. If you were going to speed limit, you wouldn't have a ticket. You wouldn't have a fine. America really wrinkles my butt in the way groups of people, lawless people, people who have no regard or no respect for property, laws, other people's rights, smash, burn, riot, spray paint, act like demonically infested individuals. For people like that say that evolution is true, I laugh and go, really? You evolved into a Neanderthal? Uh-huh. The behavior by protesters, certain protesters in Ferguson, is deplorable, unacceptable, unjustified. Anger until the dust settles at a seeming brutality An over abusage of power by the police force in Ferguson? Understandable. But why won't people let the dust settle, let an investigation begin, and let things be sorted out? What I talked about in the video yesterday is that when the police come in and tell the protesters they cannot have their video cameras going, I got a problem with that. I propose an idea that all police right now will be it will be mandatory equipment to have a GoPro on every officer, in every car, in every situation. You get called, camera's rolling, and it feeds through a GPS right back to police headquarters, recorded and monitored. That way when stuff goes down, it protects you and it protects the police. It's the same thing as us school bus drivers having a video camera. It records audio and video. When a kid goes and says that the bus driver touched them, they can pull a video and go, no, he didn't. When a kid says that the bus driver cussed me, they can pull the video and go, oh, yeah, the bus driver used profanity. We heard it ourselves. I've talked about getting a camera in my truck and one on the dash of my school bus because people in American society know they have anonymity. I wonder what they'd do if they suddenly realized their license plate, their face was being photographed, and say, hey, Colorado News, why don't you air this one? This is out of my windshield of the school bus. If you guys really want to make a difference, start airing this stuff. I guarantee you, if people thought they were going to be recorded, they'd probably change their behavior. And the same goes for the police. They cannot become so heavy-handed that they tell us we don't have a right to monitor their behavior and hold them accountable. The police are supposed to protect and serve, and when they fail to do that, we have a society that turns into the very problems we're seeing today. I don't support the protesters that bust things up and start going crazy. Ever. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what sex you are. I don't care how mad you are. Tearing up other people's property, tearing up neighborhoods. Does it occur to you that the stuff you're destroying had nothing to do with the police? This is somebody else's property. This is somebody else's livelihood. This is somebody else working hard. What if those same people turned in their rage and came and set your whole house on fire and took your Cadillacs and your cars and turned them upside down and tore them to pieces? Would you like that? How come the golden rule no longer applies in this country? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But no. Pacific has formed a view based on watching, not believing bias, just watching what happens when a seeming infraction takes place. And large groups of people suddenly smash, loot, vandalize, riot, violent. Does anybody ever remember the truck driver that stopped in LA to help somebody? And one of the thugs came and beat all over him. Amazing. That's racism. From them to the rest of us. Pacific knows that there's hot button issues in this country, and Pacific knows that there's many times that the police force gets too cocky, abuses its power, and oversteps their bounds. But when people resort to the basest form of behavior of destruction, mayhem, and creating fear and danger to property and people, you're not justified and validated anymore. You put a mark on your own ethnicity, you create more damage in the eyes of the rest of people out there looking in going, whoa. There are ways to deal with abusive police power. There are ways to get things done properly. Smashing other people's property, raising hell in the streets isn't one of them. Pacific has even gone so far as to say after 9/11 happened and Bush said Islam is a religion of peace, and I said, no, it isn't. That's an outright lie. I believe in the freedom of religion in this country, but I think we need to add a clause to that. If your religion calls for the destruction of people and property, you will not be permitted to come and practice that here. If your belief system calls for the destruction of people and property, you're not going to do that here. But I would even take it a step further. American women believe it's their right to destroy human life within their womb. They should be penalized and charged with murder, but instead we call it choice. Barack Obama's called an end to all this chaos in Ferguson that's dominating the news in Missouri. More protests, more breaking up stuff, more going crazy. And I've learned over the years that people like an excuse to go nuts. And they wait for an opportunistic time and go, haha, look what the police did. Let's teach them a thing or two. That's messed up. I do not agree that the police do everything right all the time, but not one word was said by the community in LA about the behavior of Rodney King, was it? Would the black community have outraged if I was driving my pickup truck and been hit and killed by Rodney King's extreme, aggressive, dangerous driving wrong way on an LA freeway? Would they have rioted over that? Nope. Would they have cared? No. A lot of things are nothing but an excuse for a bunch of discontented malcontents to go absolutely AWOL. I've seen it all my life. I grew up on the tail end of the Watts riots. I know about Watts. Watts is rough, still. I went through places growing up. Compton, Inglewood. I lived in Torrance. I knew as a kid what the bad neighborhoods were. I grew up in a lily white neighborhood. And Pacific did not grow up with prejudice. But as I've gotten older, I've seen that, boy, there's racism, all right. But it isn't just coming from my people. It's coming from everybody today. When I see behavior exhibited like in Ferguson, Missouri, Los Angeles over the Rodney King, Seattle over the global summit, sheesh. These are people that want an excuse to just go crazy. They're angry. They're upset. They want to get after the haves because they're the have-nots. When you start attacking and destroying hardworking Americans' life, property, I got a problem with that. Why don't you all be big boys and big girls and start appealing to the system legally and start saying, hey, we demand an investigation of these officers. And if we find them to be that they did not act with protocol, get them fired and get them prosecuted and possibly lawsuited. But destroying other people's property? Pacific's stance is this: no man has a right to go destroying other people's property. No man has a right to do the kind of stuff that goes on in these unpeaceful protests. But I do maintain that the people in this country have a right to videotape everything that's going on. Absolutely. Accountability is good, both for the protesters and both for the police. It was said in the news article that they even ordered the news channel out of there. Wait a minute. I don't care for the evening news because the evening news is often muckraking and trying to cause drama and trouble anyway. I am not against the idea of doing what Europe and even Hong Kong and other places are doing. They're installing cameras. because people do not behave themselves. And because there were cameras on that truck driver that went and helped somebody, that other guy was brought to court. Crazy stuff. The only way any of this is going to stop is if we put some accountability on this. What is going on in Ferguson, Missouri is sad. It shows that America is indeed broken. It shows that the racial issue has not ended. It shows that the system needs some huge overhaul. It shows that American people cannot police themselves on either side of the fence. And it shows that there are some people that like to keep this going and keep the drama going because it's getting them all kinds of spotlighted attention for negative behavior. I don't know all the ins and outs with the teenager that was shot. I can't speak on that. But when any group of people protest to the point of utter destruction and chaos, you just lost my credibility. Or you've lost credibility with me believing that your cause is worthy. The scariest thing that confronts Pacific is that right here in the greatest country in the world is we got people that are jealous and envious of other people's goods, other people's hard work. I'm not talking about greed and corruption and corporate garbage. But where people got to go take out their frustrations on everybody else. Smash, steal, take, ruin, hurt people, scare people. It bothers me that we've got people living in this country in a so-called civilized, modernized, so-called liberated American society to see people behaving like that. And then I have people tell me that man is basically good. That's not what my Bible says. It says there's none righteous, no, not one. To watch melee ensue over anything where innocent people, people's property is affected, that's just wrong. What will happen in Ferguson? I don't know. But it's a sign America has still not healed itself. But if we continue to focus that everything that happens is always based on race, we're never going to get that problem solved. I do know many cases that were decided unfairly because somebody played race card. The O.J. Simpson is a classic trial. That just from the outside looking in, he was clearly guilty. This coming from a guy who thought O.J. was a teddy bear. I didn't even know about the abuse that he had put on Nicole Simpson. Then the whole Bronco chase, I'm like, sheesh, if he's not guilty, what's all that? Him and Rollins on a joyride while people cheered. So much for people believing in justice. And all people were hell-bent on was trying to find a shred of racism somewhere, and then they found Mark Furman, and that was their scapegoat. Never mind the blood all over the Bronco, the broken glass in the hotel room, the blood all over the gloves, the this, the that, Caitlin hearing sounds. O.J. Simpson was guilty as hell. But that's not the only case. The John Benet Ramsey case. It is my express belief and opinion that the Ramseys were guilty, the parents. They tried to pin it on somebody sneaking into the house. I don't buy it. Justice in America is not what it is. It's messed up. No case should be judged by the color of one's skin. Cases should be decided upon the evidence and the testimony of reliable people. And I don't care if it's a black man, Mexican, Asian, white. Everybody has a right to a fair trial. But when high-profile trials are decided in a media circus, that's not justice. When an ethnicity gets picked up for that ethnicity actually breaking the law, they need to take accountability for their action and stop playing race card. Conversely, if I get pulled over by a black cop, I'm not going to say, oh, he's racist. I'm going to go, oops, I was doing something I shouldn't have. My thinking is clear. If you're doing what's right, you don't have anything to worry about. But oftentimes we have cases precipitated that end in a calamity by kids being thuggy, messing around, doing something they're not supposed to do. And when that kid gets killed as a result, the whole community goes into an uproar and an outrage, and not one word is said about, hey, what about avoiding the appearance of evil? Hey, what about the fact he was doing this, and the police did have to respond, and the police did try to negotiate, and the police... I know about those kinds of things. The racial divide in America is never going to be healed when certain parties involved refuse to look at the actions of their own citizens and say, you know what? Stop it. It is my express opinion that a lot of stuff that goes on in this country that's wrong has been blamed because of a white man, and that needs to stop. I've lived in a black neighborhood. I've lived in a Mexican neighborhood. I lived in Hong Kong in an all-Asian neighborhood. I've seen behavior of all ethnicities that can be easily stereotyped. That's not hate, just talking truth. I lived in an all-white neighborhood, and I saw things that annoyed me about my own white people. Me discriminated against by other white people because I don't earn enough or don't have a college degree or drive the right car. Discrimination exists on all levels. It's not unique to the black people. The Jewish people suffered far more than American blacks have, historically. Irish people were hauled in to build the railroads. The Chinese were hauled in to build the railroads. Just about every race at some point has been slaves of somebody. I have found in my own travels that I have reached my hand across the aisle to the African American community, and I do have friends and viewers that I adore and love. But I've also seen a huge amount of discontent and hate and an unwillingness from the other side of the aisle to accept me based on the color of my skin. Martin Luther King said some profound things. And I know for a fact if he was alive today and saw the behavior of some of the things that are going on today, he'd say, whoa, 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 hold it, stop, put on the brakes. At some point, every person, regardless of ethnicity or color, needs to take a look at themselves in the mirror and say, did I get up today with the intention of doing the right thing? Or did I get up today and say, F it, I don't care? Because if you do something and your actions generate consequences, you'd better check yourself. That's what Pacific has observed. Why is it wrong to talk about this stuff? Because I'm a white guy. But this white guy has freedom of speech too, and this white guy isn't promoting hate. No way. I'd like to see healing. But when I see behavior exhibited, and I see the same old scenario rear up its ugly head every time, something went down with the law, these people are paid off, now we're going to blow up everything and tear up everything. And that's my fault? No, it's not my fault. I have been mistreated by black people. Lots. I've been racially profiled by them. I have had them target me, walking home, bully me, make me go all the way around the block. I didn't go and set their houses on fire. I didn't get revenge. I just tried to avoid the confrontation and get out of the... Figured, okay, let God deal with them. Pacific could come up with a number of reasons why I can be mad at this or that and things I've gone through, and I could even have a justifiable excuse why I should be racist, but I'm not. Because I take people as individuals and say, this radical group of people acting like a bunch of crazies over here, they don't represent all of them. I lived in Hong Kong. I know what Asian rude is. Pushed, shoved, banged. And I love Asia. And I think some black people are some of the most beautiful people I've seen. Some of them have strong convictions, and there's things about them that I deeply admire. But the only way America's going to heal itself, people, if we start being real about this, and we all have a right to have a voice. Not just you. Some of us looking from the outside in can say, hey, you know what? That's wrong. And it doesn't matter if it comes from a white guy or a black guy or a Latino or a Filipino or a Hmong. We all need to check ourselves. How would the black community feel if somebody I loved was killed for no reason by some black carjacker out of a certain neighborhood? Would I be justified in gathering up all my white friends and rocking and stoning and setting the neighborhood on fire where that person lived and tearing up everybody's houses? Nope. Do you see where I'm going with this? Why is it okay for them to do this, but it's not okay for us to do it back in return when things bad happen to us? Where's my justice? I've had a lot of injustices hit me by all kinds of people. I've had the privilege of being not discriminated against by anybody. If people hate, they show hate. Doesn't matter what color, sex, socioeconomic area or strata they come from. I haven't run around and got revenge. I haven't gathered up all my buddies and said, you know what, let's go tear that guy's house apart or his car. The difference is I'm a Christian, and when something happens that I cannot control, I just say, Lord, you deal with them. You're the only one that can. One of the biggest problems that's facing America today is that, as I said, and this hit me when I lived in Hong Kong, and I said it out loud and it shocked me, and I said, no, that's the truth. Most Americans don't want truth. Most Americans are focused on this or that, but they don't want truth. Don't tell me I'm wrong. Don't tell me that a certain behavior by a certain group of people is wrong. Don't do that. It's not allowed. Don't take issue with feminism. Don't take issue with people having abortions. Don't say anything that's against the gays' lifestyle. Don't say anything against the Democrats. Don't say anything against the blacks, Hispanics, Asians, or white people. No, no, no. I got a problem with that. God gave me a mouth. God gave me discernment, gave me a mind, and when I see something, I can say, that isn't right. How come some people demand to be heard and demand justice and yell and scream because it revolves around their color? But those same people aren't standing up and screaming for justice for somebody outside their camp that something horrible happened to. You see, Pacific calls for justice all the way around. If I saw a white guy beating a black woman or a black man for no due cause, I'm going to do something about it. Say, what are you doing? Hey! And if I can't get him off, I'm going to call 911. It doesn't matter. Justice is justice. As I reported to my viewers earlier this year, I watched a Hispanic woman get the crap beat out of her in front of my bus, outside, thrown out of a car by a Mexican man. It bothered me, and all I could do because I had a student on the bus was call in on the two-way and get the license plate and report it. It doesn't matter what ethnicity she was. It was wrong. Seeing a woman get beat bothered me. It rattled me so much that it ruined the entire rest of my day and deeply affected me. How come I feel that some ethnicities, they're myopic and they only focus on the little injustices, not little, let me rephrase that, on injustices, real or imagined. But when it happens to anybody else outside their camp, they could care less. You see, I care about justice for all. It's part of our Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America. If we're going to get into an us versus them, which we continue to do in this wonderful, un-United States of America, we're never going to get it together. We are all people. Diversity is a beautiful thing. Diversity should not mean including things that God Himself has forbidden. Immoral behaviors, demanding acceptance, murdering of children, calling it choice. But color and ethnicity, I've said it and I'll say it again. We are all descended from Adam. There is no superior race. There is no dominant gene. Oh, people want to make a case for that. And your point? I've got a problem with white supremacists. I got a problem with KKK. I also got a problem with the Panthers and any other hate group. Doesn't matter who they are. Any group of people that thinks they're more superior to another race and imply that another race is inferior, I got a problem with it. Because God made beauty in every ethnicity. God values every human being. And because of that, America continually goes about this the wrong way. I'm going to be bold enough to say that sometimes there's some ethnicities that need a strong verbal rebuke and say, you're wrong. There's times when my race needs a strong verbal rebuke. Greedy white corporate politicians and agendaists and people pushing out the hardworking people and lining their wallets. Pacific doesn't leave any stone unturned. We talk about it all. But Ferguson, Missouri, you think you could get it together? You think you guys could conduct yourselves with some frickin' class? You're being watched by the whole world. Are you proud of that? This is the country that people will die trying to get to. Why are we behaving that way? Martin Luther King wouldn't endorse it. No siree, Bob. Unfortunately, when things happen, we find out what people are really made of when we start seeing them acting out in the streets. These are people waiting for an excuse to go lawless. Those kind of people scare me because they're all filtered in, all of America. And they're all different colors, all different income levels, all different belief systems. That's frightening, sobering. I wanted my viewers to know that I do not endorse the mayhem, the rioting, smashing of things, destruction of property, hurting other individuals. I do not, Sam I am, I do not like it. I don't like it in a roller coaster car. I don't like it in a Ferguson bar. I do not violence and destruction, Sam I am. No thank you. I do not like green eggs and ham. I commented yesterday on the police telling everybody they can't videotape. Wait a minute. Anytime the authority wants cameras off, red flag. If they're getting in the way of what the police are doing, okay, understandable. But this video should remove all doubt where Pacific stands. Pacific's an activist in his own mind on certain issues, but I never call for the destruction of people and the harassment of individuals and the destruction of property. Do not. Do I believe in taking a stand and being firm? I think I've already proven myself just with dealing with trolls. We need to be vocal. We need to be men and women and stand up and say, that's wrong. We need to call it out. We also need to call out bad behavior when people start acting up in public as well. That's my piece on it. Something for everybody to think about, and every one of us needs to check ourselves. We all need to look at this Ferguson, Missouri thing and ask ourselves a question. How would we handle it? What comes out of us when something like this goes the way we think it shouldn't have gone? When I see people tearing stuff up and acting that way, I'll be very bold. We know whose master they're under, and it isn't God. This is Pacific, signing off. Bye-bye.